call a meeting order on September 10th, regular meeting agenda. Can you roll call, please, Lisa?
Ted Carlson,
Here.
Terrence Kelly,
Here.
David Nesbitt,
Here.
Keith Silver,
Here.
Steve Strong.
Here.
Also with us is Dee Ennis, Deputy Municipal Attorney, Glenda Regnart, Administrative Hearing Officer, and Dick Traney, Assembly Vice Chair. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have the agenda in front of us. We have a motion to approve the agenda. Moved and approved to approve the, moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. We have minutes of the last two meetings, and for those of us who were at the 8:13 meeting, which was not quite all of us, can we please look at 4A to see if there's any potential changes to that?
Second.
So move and approve to approve the meetings of minutes of the 8:13 meeting. Any discussion? Any dissension? Those minutes are approved. The minutes of last week's meeting.
And pardon me, I was hopeful when I put that on the agenda, and they're not done, so, sorry.
So we can't approve.
I don't have them.
All right, so we'll move that we'll just leave that alone for now.
Okay, thank you.
And then we do have Vice Chair Traney here to be heard on an agenda item.
And I have no problem with that. It does need to be confidential. Thinking about what you asked me before, we don't need to have it confidential. It's very respectful.
Okay.
Okay?
And then what we're going to do is we're going to move, because of your time constraints.
Yeah, I've got that computer right here.
Yeah, we'll move that up. Do we have any objection to, to move that up? That would be under 8A, to move that right to the top of our, no objection to the motion such?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to move 8A right up to the front. And you're welcome to join us if you'd like. And now, we came to a consensus of a sort, part of this last time, did we not? Go ahead.
Can I thought might be helpful is that Glenda, and Mr. Traney, have you ever been able to meet Glenda Regnart?
No, but I read an opinion he gave on taxation.
Okay. Glenda's also a backup ethics officer here, so we can get things out within 3 months, Dick. I thought that would be pleased with that. So we can get things out within 3 months.
Okay.
Okay. But at any rate, she had done the initial analysis on this issue as well, and we had gotten to a number of questions. She was trying to rope the board back, okay, 1, 2, and 3. And the first one was, what is partisan? And I don't know if you have a better outline here, but it was what is partisan, and it was either the so-called party platform that Dick and Julia reference, and under that, let's see. I think it got to advocacy, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having a hard time, and then we got to a whole distribution argument with Terry.
It was a definition of whether it was the broader definition of advocacy versus partisan, using a party line type of platform. Like a narrower definition versus a broader definition. That was what I remember.
And there's something that had to do with national versus local. So we're trying to refresh our memory where we finally, and we debated this for 2 hours last week, but then we tried to get back to the beginning. And I think there was a sense of national versus local, and then what you were just saying. Glenn, does this ring a bell?
Right, so the questions, sort of the tautological approach was, does the board believe that the material, the proposed resolution is material that is one partisan in nature? Yes or no? And if yes, then we moved on to the next series of questions. And the answer to that question, as I recall, by the board was that yes, they did believe that the proposed resolution was partisan in nature. Then the next question was, what the point that Terry brought up was, is this, if it is partisan, then is it material that's being distributed, published, disseminated by any means, and that's as far as we got.
That's where we got.
So the debate, so we had more or less, there was agreement in that discussion that partisan, that we were going to understand partisan as meaning taking a particular stand on a controversy. So not the political understanding of partisan, but the more, more ordinary definition, the Webster's kind of definition of partisan, taking a stand on a particular cause, taking a stand on a particular controversy. So then what we got waded in then to is, what's forbidden is for an elected official to allow, to knowingly permit a municipal employee to actively campaign or distribute partisan materials. And so we were thinking that the original resolution was partisan, but then, I raised the question of when the code forbids the active campaigning and distribution and publishing, is the assembly at a meeting passing a resolution, does that count as active campaigning, publishing, broadcasting, distribution? And I was inclined to think no. This is where our debate was. Some of us were inclined to think yes. At least a couple of us, I think, were inclined to think no. That's just sort of the normal workings of the assembly.
Normally, in a legislative body, we have taken positions on federal issues. We take position on state issues. We take position on local issues. If in fact we cannot pass a resolution, for example, on a state issue, maybe controversial when we later, it blocks off what we can do as a legislative body. I've been in the assembly 15 years. We've taken every positions on everything from immigrants coming into this city to abortion, cruise ships. It's what we do. We bring a resolution forward. If we get 6 votes and 8 we have to get over the mayor, that's just a resolution from the assembly. And then it goes on to wherever it's going to. But we do federal ones, we do state ones, we do city ones. Routine basis.
You said you did one on abortion?
Years ago. Yep. We did one on capital punishment too. That was controversial. Let's say that passed by 10 to 1, because I remember the one person that voted against it. It was down in Juneau. That was controversial. It's what we do as a legislative body. If in fact we can't do that, then we're gonna have to address the whole mechanism, because it's gonna limit what we can do as a legislative body. For example, every year when we put our capital wish list together, there's some people in Anchorage that don't like what we're asking Juneau. Does that limit what we can do? If the state has an issue coming up, can we not take a position on it?
Only if it were a ballot measure. So remember, this particular section of the code forbids the distribution of this kind of material for upcoming ballot measures. But so it would, where the assembly would be limited on at least one reading of the code, the assembly would not be allowed any longer to make resolutions taking a particular stand regarding an upcoming ballot.
Well, that's the reason I brought it to you guys.
Well, actually, didn't we say they could take a stand? The problem is they couldn't publish it.
Or,
Yeah.
Once we take a stand, the clerk's office publishes it immediately.
Well, but actually, that was in question.
They publish
last
it
time.
immediately as the minutes are available. The minutes are available to the entire public. It goes on the web. You can look at it. It's there.
Oh, that's right. The minutes go up, right? And so again, so it's
but is that
publishing-
actively
Well,
distributed?
that's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is our minutes are posting minutes actively campaigning and distributing partisan
Or is
materials.
it
And again,
part
I
of
was
the
inclined.
place of business?
I think Steve and I were inclined to think, not really. That's just sort of the normal functioning of the assembly.
I was missing Ted on this one.
And so
You were
yes,
here
in
the
some
last
sense,
time.
in some sense,
I was.
Well, Ted was on the assembly.
I know, but Ted wasn't there last time,
So
so.
for
we
a
didn't
change,
have to-
so for a change, Ted is our Justice Kennedy today.
Yeah, you can have the role this time, Ted.
Well, this might be immaterial, but I think I read on the, it's probably the ADN website.
Is that Daily News or Digest?
Yeah, it's the local, what do we call it now? Dispatch, yeah, Alaska Dispatch News. Another assembly,
Ketchikan.
was it Ketchikan, just passed a resolution against the, I'm not saying that's material here, but there is another, municipal body of elected officials that in fact did pass a resolution against the ballot measure.
No, that assembly's known for being wildly unethical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, we're concerned about the impact that this is approved on our criminal justice system. We're really shy on police officers, and the whole mechanism on trying to determine what's the impact of marijuana on our law enforcement is astronomical.
Ted?
Yeah, I don't, can I just follow up on that? What do you mean by that? How would this?
For example, right now, if you're driving drunk, we can do a breathalyzer on you.
Right.
There's no breathalyzer for marijuana. I've
No,
got a-
but there's
I've got a son's a state
there's the
prosecutor.
DREs, right?
Yeah, but I've got a son's a state prosecutor in the state's having a problem with it too. Because you've got to get their blood within a certain amount of time to get the testing done on it to see if they're impacted
Or
by
urine.
cannabis. Or urine. But again, then you've got the problem of invading somebody's privacy. And
How
go
would
to
that
court together.
But how would that change with the, meaning the impact on the law enforcement would be that because there would be so much more use,
Be a lot
that there would be a lot
cases
more cases
going
of
to
people
court.
driving under the influence of marijuana.
Be a lot more free legal assistance we have to give, because we have to appropriate so much money every year to defend people that don't have their own attorney. So if you've got more people appealing their charges,
Mhm.
that's gonna be more money we have to put into that.
If you're,
Put it in the bill.
if you're downtown, can you walk around, downtown and be drinking,
Not in the park.
beer or?
No.
Not in the park,
Okay.
but you may
Is
be
that-
able
is
to
that a-
walk downtown.
And is that a municipal code or is that a state?
You'd have to,
No.
I think it is, it's municipal.
Well, it's also municipal, it is a municipal. And it's-
So what's the-
It's
Open container.
You can't have an open container.
Yeah, okay. That was my leading question. So, so what would happen if marijuana was legalized? Can you smoke it like a cigarette
It is, yeah.
downtown? You just, so
You walk.
it has the
No.
same, it has
But
somewhat.
you couldn't smoke within 20 feet
Of a building?
of a building.
Right.
But you could
It's the
smoke it
same
in
as-
places where you couldn't drink alcohol.
Well, they have to come up, they're gonna have to find codes to implement the proposition
Right.
without doing it
Right.
disjustice, and so a lot of that'll get ironed out.
Right. But
ABC
it's not-
board is debating whether they're gonna
We're
get.
watching
But it's not-
Washington
it's
State,
not-
Colorado.
But it's not ironed out.
No, it's not
Very new
ironed out.
territory.
No, because that's why there's the effective date
Yeah.
of if it passes.
Yeah.
Then the implementation. date.
Then they can't do anything, you know, this is, okay, well, the effective date of this is gonna be such and such. And then it took Washington almost another year to actually make, I was there in Washington when it was legal, but they hadn't had all their stuff done, and the hotel smelled like you wouldn't believe.
So when I was down in Seattle watching people walk through Pike's Market puffing away
Yeah.
Really?
and getting their cars and driving,
Hmm.
and they were not smoking tobacco.
So, but that's, unfortunately, that's not the question in front of us.
Well, there's an input there.
Yes, it is though, because
Yeah.
part of the issue is if we ever were to get past this one, would be whether
Right.
it would have to be informational versus, not argumentative,
Advocacy.
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 Yeah.
So then if you start including lots of factual information, like for example, that's one of the reasons I asked that question. So say, for example, you had statistics from Washington or Colorado saying, yeah, law enforcement costs have gone up, blah, 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 or accidents on the highways have gone up, blah, 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 or those kinds of things.
Then it's information.
Then it's informational, even if it is informational
On one side.
on one side,
Right.
it's you're providing facts as opposed to, so that was,
So you're agreeing with Terry now, somewhat. a little bit.
I may get to where Terry wants to go, just use a different route.
Yes.
Okay, I have to state that I believe that they can make a move that the thing you can't do is spend municipal funds endorsing it either way.
Well,
But
and
yes,
I
they
agree,
can make
but-
a resolution that they are in favor of it or opposed to it. They can make the resolution, but they can't spend money.
We can't then go advocate one way or the other using tax
You
dollars.
can't, yeah, you can't spend money to put an ad in the paper that, you know, we made this resolution.
So you would say publishing or disseminating would be not just the resolution, it'd be doing one step further than that.
Right.
Okay.
That's,
So, but-
but I feel very strong, they can make the resolution.
But if the clerk posts it, is that, and as part of their normal duties, is that publishing
No,
and disseminating?
That's not publishing dissemination.
I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
The required to publish.
So what if the resolution also recommends a particular vote on the issue?
Yeah,
Which
vote no.
which this
Vote
one
no.
does.
Well, see, that's taken, you know, he can say, you know, I'm in favor of the resolution that we oppose that.
But the assembly could say, at the end of the resolution, you would be comfortable with them saying, as, you know, as a body, we do not support.
Do not, or
Or
do support.
Or do support.
Yeah.
But just.
You can't say, you know, we want you to vote no on this.
Okay.
But that's what the resolution says, and that's what we're trying to get past.
No.
But what's the difference though? I mean, if.
Yeah, I mean, if they say support or say vote no,
Yeah.
Well, sure, but their opinion is vote no. I mean, I
don't have a problem with that.
I don't,
Yeah.
if you're gonna let it, go, if it's not publishing and we're gonna let it go through, then I don't know there's much difference between,
No.
you know, vote no, or we don't think you should vote no, or this is
As long
our
as they don't
position.
Spend municipal funds doing it.
Well,
Yeah, I think there's a difference, but I don't think the difference matters for the
Yeah.
code.
Hey, Keith.
Yes, yes, sir.
It'd be kind of like one of us, either the assembly or the mayor, take a position on AL 37. That's coming from us in November, and we cannot spend tax dollars, not one penny, to either urge the public to vote for it or urge the public to vote against it. We don't spend money. We may debate it, we may pass a resolution, but we don't spend taxpayer dollars, one way or the other. We can't do that.
so passing a resolution is not spending taxpayers'
Passing a
dollars.
resolution is not, it's not spending taxpayers' dollars. We do all kinds of stupid resolutions on various things. Not this one's stupid, but believe me.
Stupid. I know, we do all kinds of stupid-
There are some Flag Day resolutions, that's like really weird.
But we're talking about like advertising,
We're not gonna advertise this. We would
Right.
simply take a vote on this and it would be done. Yea or nay?
And the only dissemination at all would be the clerk's office putting it up on the website. as
Anybody
minutes,
can
as
get it and
context
see
of
what
the-
the assembly did. Anything we've done is, records are out there. Back when you were on the assembly, if we wanted to see what you took a vote on, we can find that out there.
Yeah, it still haunts it.
I used to work with his son.
And may I interject before, because Dick's needs to be at a meeting at 1 o'clock, so you'll be losing him soon. So we might, anything you want to ask Dick, you might want to ask pretty quickly. But also, Dick, on your agenda 8A, if you'll look, I've summarized the points that were made, and I have attributed them to Dick Trainee in the email. So if that represents what you said, that might be good to know for ongoing discussion.
Okay, where is- That's his blue page. which I-
On their agenda 8A. Your agenda. Your
Oh,
agenda.
the agenda.
Agenda.
on the
Back to the agenda.
Agenda.
She keeps
On
saying
the
it
A.
over and over and over.
On the agenda?
Agenda under 8A.
Yeah, so
The
there's
4
there-
points.
the 4 points here. The marijuana discussion is focused on issues integral to the municipal government and divorced from party platforms.
Yeah.
A more fluid approach to partisanship would be rebuttable by substantial evidence of concurrent municipal government concerns. Adopting a more fluid approach to partisanship
partisanship.
would allow a partisan issue as it matures to evolve and cross over the partisanship line, to a nonpartisan of local concern and vice versa. If analysis is not rebuttable, partisan politics would be allowed to control all municipal issues by claiming claiming the issue at party level. Now, I've not heard anybody there was some analysis that it could be necessarily the Ds versus the Rs, but I don't see that in this
Well, by
town.
definition, by the charter, we're a nonpartisan body.
Right.
Now, we all know what everybody is in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some things that I've seen that are very partisan that comes in front of the Senate, but you just move on from it. It's the nature of being a nonpartisan body. Now, not everybody in the Assembly is gonna vote for this. I've got some colleagues I know are gonna vote against it. It's not a big deal. They're allowed to vote however they want. We move on to the next issue. It doesn't polarize us. We just move on. So,
Do you know?
let me know what you
the-
guys think.
Well, you may have the answer to this. I asked this last time. Do you know if the state legislature has spoken on this?
On the marijuana ballot.
Mm-hmm.
On a ballot issue, are they allowed to?
They probably are, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not down in Juneau, thank
Go
God.
ahead, Pete.
I'm here.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask Dick, were you on the assembly when this part, when the ethics code?
Yes.
You were off a couple times.
I was off a couple times, but the last 15 years I've been on the assembly.
A
Now,
couple times.
The city has engaged, and we've enjoyed vacations of the trainee.
He's in my
There was
district,
a-
so I know his
There was a time
history.
period where I was glad it was off the assembly, when Begich was leaving, and that whole ugly
Mhm.
stuff that went on there, I was glad it was.
You were
gone.
gone, you were off that one, huh? Okay, but anyway, this was what, 2007 or 2008? And,
I know, I'm going.
so the E part, let's see, actively campaign, okay, you can't do, the money part's up top, and then the second part is, or actively campaign, prepare, publish, broadcast, or distribute by any means material of partisan nature on any ballot measure. What was that debated in open assembly, or just part of a recommendation?
Just part of
from-
recommendation.
Part of recommendation,
Keep
okay.
in mind, our original ethics ordinance was 5 pages. This then morphed into 55 pages when we finally adopted it. And we've been struggling to figure out what those 55 pages mean, and so you guys. And I think you have some changes coming in. You're more than happy.
We'll bring it to your committee.
More than happy to look at the changes, because it's an evolving process. Believe me, years ago, before we did this 55, we had no ethics. Everybody looked at it and said, well, is that ethical or not? That's the reason we appreciate what you guys do, but it's also a learning process for us. Because it's not the same assembly in office that passed this. Changes. Other me.
And I'm sure you.
I have to leave at 19, I'm told.
At 19.
No,
Years.
2019.
Oh,
I mean, the
2019.
last time I can be on the assembly, technically, according to the court.
Oh.
I understand when you went to court, you went to Supreme Court.
Oh, I was arguing before the Supreme Court last week.
I've been there with them.
Mhm.
When those judges get there and sit down,
Yeah,
it's an interesting time period for you.
yeah,
I've been there.
yeah.
So one of the issues that we discussed, and one of the issues in the memo that I addressed was the way the code is currently drafted, there's no definition for partisan in there for us that would really kind of scope it for us and tell us exactly what that means, so we would be able to have a better feel for how the assembly meant for that term to be used. And so without a definition, we have to go to the more broad definition, and that's where.
That may be something we have to define for you.
Right,
guys
and that's
when you come in
something.
for some changes. Because you're right, if we didn't define it, it is a problem.
Right, and so then you're left to common everyday terminology.
Because partisan in this case, from my perspective, is if you're dealing with something that you got one party against another party, you take a position, that's partisan. But this, I don't consider this to be partisan. I've done lots of things. For example, one time, do you guys remember the issue on subsistence rights in Alaska? Who had first,
Yeah, I've lived through it.
okay, I
Yeah.
passed a resolution in front of the assembly, put it on the ballot, to let the people of Anchorage vote on the issue of who got first crack at the salmon. Now, was that an interesting one, and was there controversy? Yes, but we gave it to the voters to decide that here in Anchorage. And they stepped to the plate and voted on it. So we passed a lot of resolutions, bring a lot of things for the public to vote on. It's just what we do.
And a lot of them are, in your words, stupid, right? Is that?
It's on, it's
on-
on.
You and I
That's
will
already-
talk about that later, okay?
That's already on the tape.
You know that's going in the advisory opinion now.
Believe me, there are some that you wonder why you're there, okay? But our fluoride people are not showing up anymore, so it's a lot calmer times. Fluoride is an issue that keeps haunting this Anchorage of Sunday. I voted on this numerous times, believe me, I know. I had one gentleman come in one time that said, and this is off the track, but he said, you guys have to stop the fluoride because I feel it leach into my skin when I take a bath. And the cosmic rays enter my body because the fluoride allows it to come in. So, come to our meetings sometimes.
Those are the ones where they come with a tinfoil hat?
This guy had a tinfoil hat on, yes.
Sounds like some of my classes.
Are you teaching philosophy?
Oh, yeah. I'm a working philosopher.
The philosopher king, huh?
Wow, yeah.
But there can be only one.
All right, so
I'll take philosopher king.
I appreciate the hilarity, but we need to help get along and this gentleman get to his
Yes.
meeting, so.
And just to reiterate, but you are waiving confidentiality
Yes.
for this one?
Yeah.
Because, and the reason why I'm interested in that is because we'll write an advisory opinion on this, and this is a murky section of the code. It would be good to clarify the board's view on all of this section of the code.
I'm waiving
and then get it out
confidentiality
there
because as a
for.
politician, I have no confidentiality.
Thanks.
You know, believe me. If somebody doesn't like what I do, I've been mowing the yard and they're there, come on over here, I want to talk to you for a minute. It just happens. And I appreciate it. It's good dialogue between us and the public, so that'll be confidentiality.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Because as you can tell, it doesn't stymie our conversation.
No.
Well, like I said, we thought long and hard before we created you guys, and we appreciate the job you do, because it's, as somebody told me once, we're not paid anymore for doing this, and I appreciate the job you do. So I may not always agree with you, but I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you making the time to come in.
Yeah.
Anything else? Amy came by and said, aren't you gonna miss the meeting? I've gotta get there, because even though no one's gonna shut because we noticed it, we have to be there to tell them, oh, by the way, we're not gonna do it until December.
Oh, right.
I thought you could have delegated that to a chairperson, by the way.
I know, but Amy's brand new on this.
Oh, that's to say why all three of you are showing up.
This is it's a loving process when we get new assembly members in. So they can learn what they can do and what,
Yeah.
being a veteran, we need to help them get through that time period. Don't leave them there. There's no one there but them. And thanks for your time. guys.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
So I wasn't necessarily dismissing him, but this, I was trying to keep the conversation going, because it kind of degenerated.
Do you mind if I?
Everyone looks at Terry.
You know, it's the
Yes, go ahead,
It's
Dee.
the hostile environment that keeps them coming.
When you just show up, we start calling you king and Mahatma and things
You
You
go.
don't notice, visitors immediately recognize
You as the
who is
king.
the king, right? But
One thing I wanted to point out
Obviously.
to you, Ted, because I think Dick was also lighting on that, but you, is that there's a bunch of prohibitions. The first 3 or 4 have to do with money. This one does not have to do with money. So this is by itself, actively campaign, prepare, publish, blah, blah, blah. Any material of a partisan nature on any ballot measure. This is unrelated to the expenditure of money.
I took all of the code citation. I was talking to them, sorry.
Okay, so our task is to try to figure out
I took all of the
what
code
is
citations
non-financial
and put
prohibition.
them on one sheet in the front there too.
Now, I
So you
think
don't
if
In
I
AA?
have any kind of,
Yeah.
legislative intent, any of that to fall back on, because no one really knows, it was sort of handed to them. I'm sure the drafters had no idea we'd get into this type of a debate. I'm showing Ted the I-1E, because the municipal, the funding portions are above that. And so this is a distinct portion. And so what happened is, so Glenda looked at this and said, okay, partisan nature, what is a partisan nature? Terry was getting into, well, let's assume it is partisan, but is it really published, prepared, or broadcast? I was surprised to hear that they've taken stands on the ones like abortion.
Yeah, I know.
Very surprised, I mean,
Yeah.
because the ones we saw, the last 3 to 5 years that were provided by Assembly Council, were really ones where there were municipal issues
That were
involved.
distinguishable from.
More innocuous. And that surprises me
No,
that
I
he took such a
think
strong
there's
opinion on
one
wanting
more.
to engage
Right.
on
Right.
issues
Definition
like
you gotta
abortion,
look at.
immigrants
Right.
in the
And
city,
that's
and
actively.
I agree.
Capital punishment.
That may have been under
capital
the,
punishment.
that may have been under the previous
Absolutely.
ordinance, though.
The prior code.
Yes.
Right, that
Or
was
during
before
a
this.
time where there was no code.
Can I make
Or
a
no-
suggestion? We really need to raise hands because people are getting
Yeah.
drowned out.
Go ahead, Steve. He's trying to spit it out, go ahead.
So what if they just talk about the effects of marijuana? And don't mention ballot measure 2,
Well, then we're into informational versus.
right? If they don't ever say ballot measure 2 or vote this way, they just talk about marijuana. Is that actively campaigning or preparing or publishing, broadcasting, or distributing by any means material of a partisan nature on a ballot measure? If they just talk about marijuana?
I think they can.
I mean, you can make the
non-
connection.
in his business, I think the response is quack, 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 quack,
Yeah.
quack, right?
I mean, you can
have
make-
a ballot measure about the legalization of marijuana,
Yeah.
and then you.
Yeah.
But you're
pass
not
a
talking
resolution,
about-
But you don't say ballot measure, but all you do is talk about marijuana.
Yeah.
You're basically talking about the ballot.
But it's information.
Well, but Right, I mean, if you keep it informational,
Yeah.
then,
If you
I mean,
can
like
make
I-
it nonpartisan.
Yeah, like I said last time,
Right.
as a
Right.
citizen, just as a citizen, I'd like to know, in some instances, what the opinion is of the elected body.
Yeah,
You know,
and
and what
and this
effect,
is-
and what effect it would have on the municipality, whether it's fiscal or other.
because the reality is that he controls the facts and control the outcome, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can keep it informational,
Right.
and you can list whatever facts you want,
Right.
and you can make it appear as though it's even-handed, but
Yeah.
what you're really doing, what you're really saying is that this is not a good thing. That, to me, is easy enough to do.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought the potential rewrite attempted to do that.
Yeah, right, I mean, that's exactly
It was
right.
more even-handed, they put out facts.
But he didn't rewrite that.
No, and we're,
No.
right.
Yeah.
I
Has
think
he
you brought
seen
that
it?
in
Yeah, I
as a
had
discussion point.
another attorney write that, and he
Right.
did see it, but didn't comment back on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could get that comment if we wanted to, but remember that had
Yeah.
things from both sides. It was
Right.
that in,
Especially, Dick mentioned that, that the clerk publishes it, but it only gets published as the minutes, right? Is that the? So I mean, is that partisan
dissemination.
materials? So is that, the minute, so yes, within the minutes is a resolution, kind of, but remember what the prohibition is for the assembly to knowingly permit Lisa to do certain kind of thing, to distribute materials of a partisan nature. How on earth can the minutes reports from the assembly meeting be material of a partisan nature?
Well, what happens to the resolution? Well, if they pass a resolution, what happens? Does it just float around, or
Well, it's available.
is it written down?
Yeah, it's a document. It's
It's-
a document, signed document. It's available, but it's not
It's not
published
distributed.
on the website right now.
It's a pull, it's not a push. So it gets published, but you don't push it.
But you have to
No.
go get it.
It's pulled. So
have to ask for it.
But it's not
ADN will
distributed.
pull it, and they'll write about it, and they'll probably interview people about it, but they've pulled it. The assembly hasn't pushed it anywhere.
Lisa hasn't.
Did you have
Right.
something?
no, I just, how, Terry, is that different than an employee writing a check? It's a ministerial function. Right, I mean, either employees are involved or they're not if you're gonna use that.
Oh, you mean if writing a check?
We've previously found, and I think we can say
Yes.
this clearly, that an administration figure who caused an employee to write a check was immediately caught up into this whole discussion. And why is an employee preparing minutes not as on a comparable level as writing a check? I mean, I think employees are going to be involved in in a ministerial function on many levels in almost anything involving elected officials or the administration. So I'm concerned about using that as an analysis.
Because it also, aside from publish, uses the word prepare. And the word preparation is used
Well, by any means.
by any means.
And I'm sorry.
It's sweeping language, it really is.
Yeah, no, I mean-
It's very sweeping.
Have we debated this long enough? I kind of feel like we could just take a vote and get on to the
This
next
is the point
issue.
that we stopped last time.
Yeah, and I'm
and
prepared to get
and maybe
outvoted
we've
on this
changed-
one.
Maybe
I
the
mean,
board's changed its
seriously.
opinion. But at the conclusion of the last meeting, there was
Yeah.
agreement, at least in my notes, there was agreement that the material was partisan.
Was partisan,
The next question was,
Was this
is
one.
this material being disseminated,
I'm ready to vote.
by
And I-
any means?
Exactly.
What are we voting on?
And
To
if
make-
it-
To make a motion.
I don't have a motion to make, but I'll
The
vote
second
on it
half
as
of
soon
that
as somebody
phrase.
makes one.
It's the second half of the phrase.
Okay.
And then when we finish this issue, then depending on how it votes, I guess, do we get to the next issue, whether the informational
Right,
would be,
that was
that'd be the next.
that was my third
right?
question, the next
So-
prong was.
So let's just vote on this and be done with it, and then I can get
What do you
outvoted
wanna
and we
vote
can
on?
move on.
Can-
What do you want to vote on?
Why don't I state what you're voting on?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
vote,
we're a little confused.
Yeah.
the vote would be whether the introduction of this resolution
Mhm.
would constitute actively campaign or prepare, publish, broadcast, or distribute by any means material. Because we've already ruled, you've already decided it is partisan, so is this by a resolution, is that material that is actively campaign, prepare, publish, broadcast, or distribute of that material?
Well, we also agreed that actively campaign was separate from the rest of the list.
There's an or.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to vote on one, do you want to decide whether a resolution would be actively campaigning?
That might be an important distinction to make, actually.
It might be, but because it's disjunctive,
Yeah,
I
but
don't
it's-
think it's any one of them.
Yeah.
Then that triggers.
Yeah, it's
that
all under
or.
the same subsection.
Okay.
We can just, I think it's, if anybody wanted to study our notes, we've made the distinction between those two. And I wouldn't say this is campaigning.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's preparing, publishing, broadcast, distributing by any means. That would be, so.
I guess my point was, we might say that no resolution is ever actively campaigning. So that's why I wanted to try to make the distinction. I mean, I don't think any resolution they ever dreamed up would be actively campaigning. But some of them might be preparing, publishing, broadcasting, or
Well,
distributing.
then let's just break it down. So the first part would
Okay.
be, is a resolution actively campaigning? So do you call the vote?
Yeah, so does somebody have to make a motion to call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes, I thought that's all.
So,
No, I don't think.
yeah,
it's
I moved
actively-
that the resolution as presented is not actively campaigning.
Okay. Second.
Okay, it's been moved that the resolution as written is not actively campaigning.
Not actively campaigning, right.
Do you
Yeah.
need to make a motion to find whether it's partisan first? No? Okay.
So, say yea or nay.
Call for the ayes.
Yeah.
Yeah, call for the ayes.
Yeah, and I worded it so that it's not actively campaigning, so.
It's, so I is, it's
I
not
is-
campaigning.
It's not yet.
Okay, so I.
Aye.
Aye.
You're thinking of some alternative, aren't you? Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, you can just see
contrarian.
the wheels
Okay,
turning.
Yeah,
Go ahead and
you're-
call for the nays for the
Four ayes
record.
already.
What's that?
Can you call for the nays?
I'll call for the nays. Hearing none.
Okay.
If
Okay.
5 of us said ayes.
So the next part of the
Somebody else can do the
phrase
next part.
would be whether
You did
the
such a good
resolution
job.
is actively preparing, publishing, broadcasting, or distributing by any means material. So you'd phrase it in the affirmative?
Yeah, so
the
this
resolution
resolution
is-
is
Publishing.
publishing, is preparing, publishing, broadcasting, or distributing by any means, all the way through the end of the sentence, wherever the end of that sentence is.
So that's the affirmative, so I would say aye.
Do you have a second on that motion?
Oh, second? Second, that's for the motion, so.
Yeah, that's for the
okay.
motion.
So we call the
Second.
question
Yeah.
Aye.
and aye.
No.
No.
Okay.
So we're 2-2?
No,
Let's
three.
poll,
3-2.
can we poll for the vote for the
Yeah.
record? Okay. How do you vote Steve Strom? How do you vote Ted Carlson? How do you vote Terry Kelly?
No.
How do you vote David Nesbitt?
Aye.
How do you vote Keith Silver?
Aye.
And that vote passes 3-2.
So the board has voted that they believe that it is, a resolution is prepare, publish, or broadcasting or distributing by any means material. So that's what the vote just said?
Correct.
Okay. So then should we go to the Glenda's suggestion about voting on the partisan? I think we've done that, but we could redo that. As the board, can you rephrase that as a positive, that the resolution is partisan in nature? No, to vote on the partisan issue.
Yeah, so as written, the resolution as defined by the board is partisan in nature. Since there is no definition in the code for
Right.
partisan.
So second.
Okay, I'm going to poll the vote. How do you vote Steve Strong?
Well, I have a question first
Yeah.
before I discuss it. You're saying then that just passing the resolution that they're opposed to it makes it partisan.
maybe it would be helpful if he saw the definitions that you gave us last week
Yeah.
on partisan.
In the book,
Yes.
under tab 8, behind tab 8A. Turn a few more pages down. That way? Yeah, that way. Okay, sorry. Now that I say, okay, so now the other way. Apologize. The beginning there, that's a draft memo that I wrote on this question. And the first question that I addressed was whether or not the resolution as drafted was partisan in nature. And the code doesn't define partisan, so we have to use, in the absence of that, we have to use the general definition of partisan. Based on that, it appears to me to fall within the definition of partisan. And that was the main discussion we had at the last meeting, was whether or not the proposed resolution would be considered material that was partisan in nature. And the resolution is in here too, right? Is
It's
it
right past your memo.
Right past my memo. So if you look to one more page, keep going.
Conclusion.
No,
Yeah.
keep going. Keep going. There, that's the actual proposed resolution.
So the motion on the table was whether, as written, under our definition, since there is no definition in the code, whether as written, this is partisan in nature.
That it is.
That it is partisan in nature.
As we define it.
Right.
Okay, first, we have to, or maybe you did already when I wasn't here.
That's true, yeah.
Agree with her opinion.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that.
Yeah, that's what we were.
It's on the record.
Well, we
I don't
did,
know you
but-
have to agree with it. It's just, I drafted it to address the code and provide legislative history, and it was just my opinion.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
that's
You're
what I'm-
welcome to disagree with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, Terry did a really good job of providing us the definition that I think we all agreed with.
Right.
On what partisan is. So I don't know if you want to reiterate that or not.
Yeah, so the idea was that to be partisan is to take a particular stance on a controversy.
Mhm.
So it doesn't mean being Democrat or Republican. It means that to the political scientist. But if you look in the Webster's dictionary, more broadly, what does it mean to be a partisan?
Yeah.
It means to take a side, right? To
Right.
struggle on a side. So last week there was most folks seemed to be on board with that we would define partisan in a broader way.
Right.
That
Yeah.
in that
Well,
broader way,
it-
that it's
it
taking a
is.
side.
Being partisan, to me, is either it's a Democrat or a Republican, or it's in favor of something or opposed to something.
Right.
So.
As opposed to
Okay.
being strictly informational.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Did we second that motion? I
Yes,
think
you
Steve
did.
proposed it.
You
I
Yes, and
seconded
you
it.
seconded. She's got initials down here for who.
Okay.
You need somebody else on the board as the SS, and that'll mess you up.
Right now, everybody's got different initials. So.
Hmm.
Can I ask another question?
My God. Yes, please.
Will this fall under,
Are you looking for the thing I had handed you, Ted? Would be easier
under
for you.
here,
I think it's under section I. E.
Ted, are you looking
right
for?
here,
Never mind.
would this fall under, right at the end there, the designated executive employees shall be selected from among the employees with principal responsibility for carrying out policies. So can the mayor or one of his, he could designate somebody
But that's
to
somebody who.
speak on, opposed to it or in favor of it. Like they can without spending funds. You know, I know, you know, you have to, the funds have to be designated for them. But,
In this particular
like
case, I don't
in
think.
public, you know, they can speak at, you know, ballot issues. They can speak at it, community councils, make it Wednesday or one of them. Now, would they be able to do that under the, in this? You know, they can for bond issues and stuff like that,
I don't think, I think the motion is not to restrict it individually. It's just saying that, what I proposed was that the resolution that they want to pass as an assembly is partisan in nature.
well,
Is that-
so would individually be.
But I don't think, I'm not sure, but that's not what we're voting. We're not voting on restricting them individually, we're voting on restricting them as a body. Actually, we're not voting on restricting them at all.
No.
We're just saying that the resolution's partisan.
Well, remember, you cannot
Right.
restrict them. Right?
Right.
They are excluded from
Yeah.
this.
Right.
The restriction
Right.
is that they are not allowed to knowingly permit a
Right.
municipal employee,
Right.
probably going to be Lisa,
Yeah.
from actively broadcasting,
Yeah.
publishing, distributing.
Well, and material.
Right.
Of
So it's not a speech.
partisan in nature.
Right. A speech would not be considered material, I don't,
Right.
in my mind. It would,
Well, again,
Well, I don't know,
I'm just
yeah.
not sure. I'm just not
Yeah.
sure meeting minutes count
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
partisan
they-
material. To be
so-
honest, even if it includes, you know, a resolution that is partisan, are
Yeah.
the minutes themselves partisan material? I can't. That just boggles the mind to think of official assembly
No.
minutes, or like the minutes of this meeting, where maybe we take a stand on one of it. Are they? Is that a partisan document that Lisa's then posting up on the website? I don't think so.
Well, but
So we're going back to the
Yeah,
second
we're-
half of that
we're
first
leaking.
part that we.
Yeah.
Because the reason I voted yes, since we're going back to it, was because we specifically voted on that resolution,
That's right.
not on
Yeah.
any resolution in general. And so the reason I voted yes was because I also believe that it's partisan. So if it was informational.
But what's partisan?
Yeah.
The resolution
Right.
or the assembly
Yeah.
meeting minutes? You know,
Yeah.
the resolution would be in the assembly meeting, but what Lisa is going to be handling and publishing
Right.
are the assembly meeting minutes. Now, do
Yeah.
we really want to get into saying assembly meeting minutes themselves
Yeah.
can be partisan materials?
Or can't be.
Or can't be, right? I mean.
So we're going back to the previous vote.
Yes.
Well, maybe not. The previous, what
Yeah.
Dee had done in that motion was
Yeah.
that we talked about just, is this dissemination or distribution of
Yeah.
material? So it was just like a kind of technical question.
Yeah.
But this gets us back to this question of what exactly is partisan material? If Lisa were, for instance, posting on the city website just the resolution,
Yeah.
then it would be pretty dodgy, right? It'd be pretty good. But if all she's actually posting on the website are the official minutes
Yeah.
of the assembly meeting, that's not partisan material. That's an official city document of official city business.
It's also assuming that this is the only thing that's happening, is that she's posting minutes. Are you the only thing that happens? Is nobody else involved in the dissemination of this information?
Well, somebody else prepared it.
Somebody else prepared it. I mean, what Terry's saying is that
But that's part of
essentially
their job.
all that's happening
Yeah.
is you're putting the minutes on. There's more.
And it's
than
not
that.
even me, it's
Yeah.
recorded. And so what happens is, as soon as the meeting's over, it's available to go right in to listen to the meeting, right then, that recording. Then what happens is, we do action minutes. And all that it is, it's not any of the he say, she say stuff. All it is what happened on every single item of the agenda, what action was taken. And that is then signed by the chair, and it's put in our G drive. It's not even published on the paper document is not published on the website.
Is
It's
there a-
available to whoever asks for it, but it's not actively published.
So to use their analogies, it's pulled, but if the newspaper comes, they can get it if they want.
Yeah, it's a public document.
Is there a municipal cable channel
Mhm.
that broadcasts?
Mhm.
Yeah, Channel 1.
Okay. So that I would argue that is a push. It's not a pull.
broadcasting the assembly meeting.
Yeah.
The whole thing, both
So
sides.
again,
So
you
now
know-
we're gonna say, is the assembly
You know,
meeting
maybe I
partisan materials?
maybe I made the wrong motion, because when I made the motion, it was for this specific resolution, and whether or not, and whether or not preparing, publishing, broadcasting, and distributing this particular resolution.
Well, isn't that what we're?
I
Yeah,
think,
that's
the
right.
technical question of it,
Yeah.
the more precise
But
question
you're-
is.
you're looking
is
at it
it's-
more-
it's the no one's doing that. The question is gonna be in terms of the resolution is publishing or preparing or whatever, the assembly meeting minutes,
Yeah.
which will include that
That's,
resolution.
that's different.
That's not what we voted on, though, right? At least that's not what I remember that we voted on.
Go ahead.
The other thing in the process is that someone has to prepare the resolution
Right.
itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's.
And that goes into a
Right.
system,
I mean,
and
Terry
that
narrowed
person
it
touches it.
to Lisa, and that's not my understanding. That's like saying that's the only thing that happens. But, and if that were the issue, that's different. If the motion that was actually put out on the floor was whether Lisa's posting of the minutes was publishing or whatever, that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
That's not what we voted on. I'm
Right.
talking about this resolution
Right.
and the process it goes through
Yeah.
The
in
public
its entirety.
process.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I would also say that if it was an informational resolution, I would have voted differently.
Sure, right. But I mean, but again, I mean,
Well,
so
right,
you really
but
want,
that's
but again,
because that's the next
just
issue.
to be
Right.
clear where you want to go.
Yeah,
So
connect-
do you really want to
Right.
get into saying that when the assembly has documents and they ask Lisa to prepare documents for official assembly, these are action items for assembly, that those are that's distributing partisan material such that this ethics code would prohibit that?
But you answered similarly with respect to the other individual writing the check.
Different section of the code, though.
Yeah.
Different section of the code. I mean, that's about expenditures
Well-
for advertising.
You know, again, though, like
But it's still a ministerial task, because they
Mm-hmm.
don't operate on an island. So
No,
there's
but
ministerial
the-
work
the-
that
the-
would have to be done.
The code explicitly forbids using city funds for advertising. So as soon as that employee is writing that check, they are using city funds for advertising.
But I
End
think,
of story.
but
It's
the
a
principle,
clear black line.
the principle is that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. That it takes municipal employees to get a resolution up and before people and then passed. I mean, it doesn't happen with non-administrative people behind.
That's right, but look at what you're dealing with.
So
You're dealing
Ted,
with-
Ted's first, yeah, I'm sorry.
Does
And then-
anybody know the initial intent when this was written? You know, Ketchikan is, I mean, are we sure that this wasn't written for municipal elections, municipal ballot measures,
We know that this
not
was.
state?
Down below,
Oh.
it references it specifically.
Uh,
So within
it-
E.
It doesn't, it just says, you know, ballot measure. But
Right, and then at the end, so the question you were asking about whether they could designate somebody,
right.
that's only for municipal elections. That they
Right,
can
right,
designate it
right.
only, so that wouldn't apply here because this is a state ballot.
Actually, we have a split ballot this time.
Yeah, so.
But
Part-
this,
part
me-
of it
but
is
this,
municipal.
re-
How
but
can
this
you pull
measures
that
on
out
state,
then
right?
and say that this
Right.
is only for municipal elections and this is not for municipal ballot measures?
So
Yes, Steve.
this, at the bottom, because it specifically references municipal, that's where you can designate somebody on those types of issues before municipal elections. If, so the way we have to read it
Oh, I'll be
is,
there. Yeah.
if they wanted this up here to apply to only municipal, it would have said it. And so because it says any, it means all.
Yeah, and, you know, as we all know, Ketchikan, you know, did the resolution. Now,
But they may have, I'm sure they have a different ethics code than we do, so we can't
Yes,
draw
they
the
have
parallels.
one.
Seriously,
Yeah.
they're pretty wild down there, too.
Yeah.
Wildly
South-
unethical.
southeast,
Yeah.
you know, it's-
I was wondering if somebody
They're
knew,
old-time loggers
or if it
turned
would
into
be
fishermen.
possible to look up and see what the initial intent was.
Waiver paper.
Yeah,
Okay, couple things. One is I did ask Julia about that, and I think she thought it was more along party lines initially. At least that's what they thought, even though I think the position is being argued the opposite of that, given Glenda's memo. But we can't ascertain that because it was a committee, the committee kept changing. And I guess I was thinking of it, Ted, before you started, but I think this is torturing us. We spent 3 hours on this, and then in another opinion, another 10 hours in special counsel because this was badly written, as it turns out. They didn't realize that at the time, that we're trying to make sense of a code that it's not logical, it's not well written, and we're trying to hang our hat on different words here that aren't logical, don't reflect intent.
Okay, in response to them, then why are we taking a stand? Why can't we just say, it needs to be rewritten,
Well,
this sort of thing, and this sort of thing, and why make a stand?
Well, I guess
No.
I'm to the point that I think continuing to debate the meaning of a word is useless because the whole thing is not coherent. It does need to be rewritten.
Especially
So-
this part about
Yeah.
this whole backdoor
No.
municipal employee versus,
Yeah,
that's
so
just
that-
ridiculous.
That's very
That
true.
really
One reason that it might be worth taking a stand, at least now, is that until it gets rewritten,
Right.
issuing some sort of clarity, no matter, whatever view this board winds up reaching, some sort of clarity in a public advisory opinion will be helpful for anyone who has to deal with these kinds of issues. And then that'll give us also some line to think about what recommendations we might
Ted
make to
and
the
Steve.
assembly.
I was after him, before him, whatever. So, to me, E is also very restrictive in what it covers. Because it talks, first of all, it has to be partisan in nature, so that's restrictive in and of itself. But it also says it limits to ballot measures, referendums, initiatives, bond issues, or other special elections. So I don't think it's not all inclusive.
No,
So
yeah.
it's not saying
That's
every
another
it's not
aspect.
saying every resolution now they can't publish. It's just saying if it pertains to any of these itemized things. So I think doing
That's true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So I mean, for example, if they passed a resolution on marijuana last year or earlier this year, before it was a bond measure or a ballot measure, it wouldn't even apply.
And maybe that's what he was referencing earlier. Maybe
Yeah.
they were
Right.
taking positions on
Yeah.
things that were coming,
Yeah.
that were issues, but there was no
Right.
corresponding
Right.
ballot measure.
I think that's right.
And they could do that all day long.
Yeah.
That's right. This isn't a blanket prohibition
No.
from them
It's
doing
for
whatever
again,
they-
it was for this specific resolution.
That's a good point.
But again, they would want to make resolutions that are timely to.
I don't
That's
disagree.
true. No, I know.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
true.
Ted?
Make it information.
Throughout this whole
Well, which is
Section
what
E.
our next issue was. Yeah.
Throughout this
Going to
whole
be.
section E, they are referring back to municipal. Yes, and this is a state. So,
So it's your opinion that if we're talking about something that's in front of us on the municipal ballot as opposed to a state ballot?
yes.
Well, it says any ballot
But it
measure.
didn't say
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't define
That's
it
why I
right
say
away.
the initial intent, but it says, and then it goes on to say the mayor is ruled, and you can't spend municipal
It probably
funds.
been better.
Now, that would be stupid on the Assembly's part to spend municipal funds opposing a state ballot. So, I'm sure in that particular statement, it refers to municipal. Because nobody in their right mind would advocate spending municipal funds to advocate a state issue. So, that's why, to me, I truly believe that we shouldn't even, put it back to the Assembly, until we get this rewritten that's clear to us. It's not clear to me at all. And
I have a question. How is the assembly looped back to E
In 035,
in
an
035?
elected official is not allowed to knowingly permit a municipal employee to violate 025 1E.
Circles back.
That's the circle. It's not that.
so, that's, we've gone through this and
What do you think about this argument? I mean, this might be sophistical, but I mean,
I was going to
if
get this vote.
we agree that if we agree the language is awful and it's unclear, then why not say this? If our gut feeling, and I think some of us has that gut feeling, that the Assembly should be allowed to make a resolution in which it reports its view on a burning issue of the day, on a controversy of the day. The language is awful and it's unclear. Let's just arrive at the right outcome. The right outcome is to say, yeah, of course you can do this, and then just figure out that there's plenty of lack of clarity to get us to the right outcome. There's no sense arriving at a wrong-headed outcome based on language that we all admit is not very clear.
Yes,
Well,
Steve?
I would, instead of saying it allows, I would say the code as written does not prohibit, clearly prohibit. So it's,
Right.
it does not allow, it just doesn't
Yeah.
clearly prohibit, and until it can be read in a cohesive
Right.
fashion to prohibit, we're not gonna say that it does.
That's what I think we should
This is
do.
why I keep a lawyer, not you.
But the other lawyers, okay, now
I always
this,
have 3 lawyers.
Can you refer to the other one now?
Pick the one. That's things that I
There's a
like.
joke there.
I feel like I'm in trouble, you better ask her.
So- so
I move that.
So
Dean's
here's my
right.
view. I think they ought to be able to pass an informational resolution on the issue.
Thank
So
you. That's where
that's where I want to
absolutely.
get to.
That's where I want.
So
I agree.
somebody,
So there's a vote on the table
So-
right
so-
now
well, no,
as
wait
to
a minute.
whether or not the material is considered partisan
Yeah.
in nature.
Yes.
And there's been one response, right, to the vote? It was
So-
motion and seconded
Yeah.
and one
Yeah,
response
so
and.
are we ready to vote on that issue? Because then we can get to our third issue, which is what information.
call the question.
Okay, go.
Okay.
Call the question.
What
What
was
is our
the motion
question for
now?
sure?
So the
You-
motion,
the
I
motion.
believe, as I scratched it here, is the resolution as written, state it
motion is-
positively. The resolution as written is partisan as defined by the board in nature.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a vote. I'm going to poll the room, okay? Steve Strong?
Yes.
Ted Carlson? Terrence Kelly?
Abstain.
Okay. David Nesbitt?
Yes.
And Keith Silver.
I'm going to pull the Terrence Carley. I'm going to abstain because I don't have a good feeling one way or
Yes,
the
no,
other.
abstain. You don't have to justify.
I,
Yeah.
I don't have a good feeling about the whole
Yeah,
process.
because I,
That's why.
Yeah.
So
So
it
here's the
passes.
motion. So what, I'm going to move that, that the code does not clearly prohibit the Assembly from introducing and passing the original resolution on marijuana.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second.
So what he's agreeing with, so what Terry is reiterating is what Dee said, which essentially is that this doesn't prohibit that original Terry just skipped it. He's skipping over the third issue.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the third issue?
The third issue is informational.
Yeah.
What-
Which was kind of the end I wanted.
the
to
end
reach.
all I was going to get to also.
He made us miss that one.
Yeah, he skipped over it because the informational issue to me was the one that I was going to kind of more liberally broaden. Kind of like what we did before, which was kind of a liberally broad informational type thing. Terry skipped over that, and instead, what he's picking up on is what Dee mentioned, is that this proposal, sorry, not proposal, resolution, the one that was proposed
Right.
is not prohibited because this is not clear. Yeah, no, I see. I disagree with
But
that.
we've already
Yeah,
voted
but
that it is partisan.
we voted as partisan. That's true. But what
Yeah.
Terry is saying is that this isn't clear enough to prohibit it, and that first resolution should be allowed. Is it my
It
reason?
could be unclear in a number of ways. The relationship of 035 back to 025, the relationship of what does distribution and dissemination mean in terms of the various things that Lisa is going to do? What is the status of an assembly minutes? What is the status of Lisa making photocopies for official assembly documents that are going to go to a meeting? There's a lot of unclarity here. And again, and it's not a trivial thing to say that the assembly cannot pass a resolution stating its view on a reasonable controversy that has an effect on the municipality. That's not a trivial limitation upon the assembly's ability. If it were absolutely clear or even reasonably clear that the code forbids it, I would be on board, even though I might disagree with that outcome. But I think we all agree that the code is very, very opaque.
Okay,
I,
Glenn is
see, I
next.
disagree with, okay.
Yeah, I'm
No,
sorry.
I just, procedurally, I need to ask Lisa a question. What was just voted on? Because
partisan.
I thought the issue that was just voted on was whether or not each individual believed that the proposed resolution was or was not partisan in nature.
Right.
Was partisan.
Right.
Was
Is
partisan.
partisan.
Yeah,
Okay,
is
and
partisan.
that's what, that was the last.
And it passed.
302.
It passed.
I-
Okay, let,
Go ahead, David.
Oh, my only point was, I don't think this is written well, but I don't think it's that unclear. I don't think that we can use this and introduce alternate ways of defining certain sections that appear very clear to me, and then say, oh, because this is not clear, we can't make a decision. I disagree with that.
I think if there's no finding that it's partisan in nature, it ends right there and he's green lighted.
That's right.
okay, say
That's
that
the end
again.
of it.
Can you say that again?
Yeah,
If
it's
the
not
board
partisan.
cannot find that the material is partisan in nature, that is the end of the inquiry.
Okay.
And it's green lighted and he can do it.
Yeah.
The board-
So
Okay,
Okay, but
basically,
it is partisan.
of course it is, but
They
they're
took a
abstaining.
vote and
I
it
know.
didn't
Yeah.
pass?
No,
No,
it
it
didn't.
passed.
Oh,
It is.
well, then
Yeah.
redo the vote, because
No,
I
no,
was
it was
just-
No,
three-
no,
how many
it
is
is-
it?
Three
is
and two
partisan.
abstained, so
Yay,
Two abstained,
yay,
three vote.
abstain, yay,
So
abstain.
they said, yes, it is
I
partisan.
thought,
Yeah.
okay, so I thought Ted
Yeah.
abstained.
No, Ted
No.
said, no, he said
Oh, I'm
it was
sorry,
partisan.
Ted, I thought you
Yeah.
abstained.
Yeah.
In the end, I thought you abstained as well.
So it is partisan.
Okay,
Yeah.
I misunderstood Ted's
Yeah.
vote. I thought he'd retracted
Yeah.
and
But
abstained.
assuming it's partisan,
Yes, Steve.
So I agree with what Terry said with respect to, I do believe that they should be able to make their position known as a group.
Then-
But the motion you made, I think is more than that.
It is
Yeah,
significant.
so.
No, that's all it's saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm in agreement.
I mean,
with
do you think this clearly prohibits them from
I think
doing
it-
that?
I think
This
it's clear
mess
enough.
of a paragraph?
I think it's clear enough. So you know,
To-
but I do agree with you, if we get to the point of allowing them to pass resolutions that present their position and they're informative, I don't have a problem with that.
And that's kind of what, you and I have been
Yeah.
kind of dancing around this issue the whole
Right.
time, I think.
Yeah. Because I think they ought to be able to do that,
Okay.
even on a
Ted.
ballot measure.
I think the assembly members would be derelict of duty by not passing something like this. If you take into consideration, additional cost it's gonna cost the municipality, that it's going to be, detrimental to the innocent drivers out there that are gonna be that, and this sort of
Where's
thing, I
the-
think they
where's
would
the
be
resolution?
derelict of their duty not to pass something.
The
like
problem
this.
is the way it's written. If it was written more on an informational basis as opposed to,
8A,
No, sorry, the resolution.
8A, pass the memo.
So was Terry's motion seconded?
Yes.
You did? Okay. So you have
Pass
to
the
take
memo.
care of that one before we can
Okay.
present
Well,
another
not
motion.
necessarily. You can-
Well, we have to do something with that motion before we can make another motion.
Well,
You're right.
You can alter that.
yes, Steve.
I was gonna say, it would be interesting to know what Dave and Steve have wanted to talk about in terms of informational before voting to me on Terry's motion.
Do we have to have do they have to agree or?
You
With the
can-
motion on the table?
The motion
motion on
hasn't
the
been
table.
seconded. It's
Okay.
not
No,
on.
it's
Okay, you just now did it?
seconded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. So now it's on the table. You can talk about
Anything?
what you want
In
to.
relation
But
to
what
that?
what you thought you would do with informational, how would that, maybe that helps us not
Well,
go to Terry's position?
I was going to, I thought that what is allowed under the code, clearly, is to allow there to be an informational something like the one that you originally brought in as an alternative. And this is, and I agree with, I think, and this is part of what I'm disagreeing with, is this, and urges voters to defeat the ballot. That, to me, is not the job of the assembly, to tell me how to vote. If they want to inform me, then I think that's fantastic, and that is their duty, and that is their obligation, and I think that is something that they should be doing. But they shouldn't be telling me how to vote.
But is the rest
They
of
should educate
is the
me.
rest of that resolution okay with you though?
Well,
I mean,
I'm not
I mean-
getting into that. I'm simply saying that
Because
informational
it's
is
just
an
information,
issue.
right? It's like, this is what we think.
No, that's, no, because, no, the whole point is, if they want to educate us, that's fine. The second one that was alternative had links to websites, information, and in that process, they're telling us what they want us to know.
Right, okay.
And I don't have a problem with that.
And I agree with you, 100%. But are we gonna take each one, okay, this one's okay, this one, this whereas is no good, this whereas is, you know?
Well, I mean, it's,
Why don't, and I truly believe, let's put it back on them.
I agree with that part too.
yeah, well, that's fine with me too.
So-
If you want to,
A rewrite is
Rewrite
probably
it. Yeah, make it informational.
but this is the one that we were looking
We
at.
should try it, we should try to provide some clarity. I mean, again, given if it's this confusing, I think it's not a trivial thing to limit the assembly in this way. And if it's this confusing, we should really think carefully about whether this code clearly prohibits them from doing that. Because it's not a trivial thing to tell an elected body in a democratic society, you may not tell the public what you think about an important controversy of the day.
I don't disagree with that part.
Call to question.
Well, one.
You should add
quick
that to your
one.
question.
Would you be willing to modify that, to remove the words as written out of that motion?
So how would that be, Ted?
Well, just everything.
The first, you mean the motion that passed?
Yeah,
If we
no,
could
no,
remove.
No.
No,
one
Ted.
The one that he's
made.
proposed.
I mean, he didn't
Terry's.
put, you didn't say as written.
No, he did.
You
The
didn't?
code is
Okay.
written. You said something.
Oh, that's the code, that's right.
It's written.
He said the
The code
code
has
does
written.
not clearly
Okay.
prohibit the assembly from introducing and passing the proposed resolution. That's what he
A
said.
proposed.
The original,
Not
I
said
think the original.
The
original.
the original.
So this
Yeah, 'cause that's
specific,
what
This one.
so this
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
one.
So,
This
you
specific
want,
one.
a proposal, a resolution.
Do you want to amend the motion?
I'm asking.
So how do you want to
Yeah,
amend it?
I'm not, yeah.
To, instead of saying the resolution, but a resolution.
Oh, we were asked, okay, no, you're right, you're right.
So Terry, would you consider, where's the original?
There, yeah.
Since your motion was about this particular one,
Yeah.
that if we remove the part, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
With I think to me what makes it partisan is telling them how to vote. That's the part that sticks with me.
And I
the
don't
most.
like that. I mean, that's the thing. I don't
So-
like that they do that. But
So what I'm saying is, I agree with you that the code doesn't clearly prohibit this as written, with the exception of that part. I think that part is pretty clear. It's partisan, and
Oh, okay. So would you be? So yeah. So I would be willing to entertain then amending the motion to be that the code does not clearly prohibit the original proposed resolution,
Except for that.
except that last clause.
Yeah, now therefore.
encouraging
Yeah.
voters.
Yeah.
Encouraging voters to defeat
right.
the measure.
Wow, but we haven't really discussed the whereas. I mean,
So yeah. So just
I mean,
proposed amendment.
basically
And
everything
even-
but the now therefore,
Every-
and just the last
even the now
clause.
therefore, this is
Yeah.
the last one, and urges voters to defeat the ballot measure. Yeah, I would be willing to modify.
Yeah.
So the motion would then be that the code does not clearly prohibit the assembly from introducing and passing this resolution minus the last clause, and urges voters to defeat ballot measure.
Okay, I'll, as a second,
You'll accept that? Okay, are we ready to call the question?
No.
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 I did now,
no.
so allows us to discuss it.
Yeah, because now we can talk about whether this
I'm
is
trying to move
informational.
along.
Yeah, well, we might be stuck on this one for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
are
Are people willing to
informational.
modify the motion? Can we vote on modifying the motion at least to that?
Do we have to do that?
Yes.
Yes, you do. You
So-
do. I'm
okay,
sorry.
we can,
Yeah.
modify it, sure.
Yeah, aye.
Okay, aye.
Done.
Okay.
Okay, so back then now to the modified motion then.
yeah.
So, we're kind of, Dave, we're actually kind of getting to the information.
Yeah, and that's,
It's just, it's the, what do we call it with the code, the back door or
Right,
whatever?
right.
Yeah, we're backdooring it to the informational part.
Well, I mean, you could
So-
always vote to you guys
So
don't
you
vote
vote
now to say it doesn't clearly prohibit it, and then we can get to the information stuff and work, hash all that out.
Because now, to me, informational is not, it's,
Well, you gotta keep a close
yeah,
eye
I know.
on him.
Yeah, I know.
Very close
Yeah,
eye.
so I'm not, if we voted now, I'm gonna vote no. Is that what you mean?
Well,
Sorry.
I don't see
I think
anything
we erased
there
that part, never mind.
that isn't true.
Well, what are our factors that we just, I mean,
So it has to be informational.
Yeah.
Informational, obviously, is
Okay,
in the
well-
eye of the beholder.
Read it.
Yeah, but I agree with Steve that this is, you could, those on the pro side of ballot measure 2 could argue very well that, oh, whereas ballot measure is a harmful measure that ignores the severe problems, they're gonna say, well, wait about what medical benefits and this and this and this and this. I'm not trying to propose.
No, I
that-
understand.
I'm just
Well,
saying-
so for example, the
I'm
use and
voting on
delivery,
what I believe.
the
Yeah.
use and delivery of marijuana is still a violation of federal
I think
law.
that's
Yes,
fact.
it is.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's information. And I think both Colorado and Washington have discovered some issues with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything that's really not informational here. Obviously, people who don't agree with it will call it partisan.
which, are you still talking about that one clause?
I'm talking about any of
The
it.
whole of them?
Yeah,
Oh,
say,
okay,
well, the federal government shouldn't be in on it, so that's partisan.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can ever make something informational for everybody. And I don't know if we want to define informational.
So in your
Well,
view, if you
no.
take out that last clause, this thing is not prohibited because it's informational, not partisan.
Exactly, right. I mean, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
I think
Let's see.
I could think it could be better.
A
Better
lot,
written.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
but,
But.
right, no.
Yeah, is
I-
that our job to tell them that?
Like
it's
that
poorly-
one, the one
you
that
know,
you brought in was better written.
Yeah. Is it our job to
But-
tell them it's poorly written?
But that's because they're the ones voting on it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is their deal.
Right.
Right?
You know, I think that to me the real partisan part of it was telling people how to vote.
To go out, right?
But I need to tell you that at 2 o'clock, I got to leave.
Yeah.
Because I got an appointment in Eagle River at 2:40. Right.
Hey, it only took me a half hour to get here from Eagle River. I left at 11:30, got here actually 25 minutes.
I drive within the street.
Oh, gee.
So the legalization of
I look to
marijuana
make
is
sure there's no
predicted.
cops behind me, then I'm okay.
If you ever see a little you see a little Mini Cooper behind you, be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah, and normally I'm behind it,
Yeah.
going faster than the speed limit.
So then this, I mean, the second phrase here, the use of marijuana has been found to have negative physical, mental, behavioral, and social health consequences and associated with diseases of the heart, brain, lung, infection.
I just read a study from Harvard that says that.
No, I think that's factual.
Yeah.
That's-
I
that
think
sounds
all of
accurate.
this is factual.
Well, let me just take it one by
Yeah.
one, because I want to deliberately go through this. I'm just going to call you Speedy, maybe not the car.
Yeah.
Whereas legalization of marijuana is predicted to produce significant net economic costs. I don't know where that comes from. The thing that Trainee said to me, I don't necessarily think that it follows, but like I think that falls into the category in my mind of poorly written, but that's
Yeah.
not our job.
Right.
We're not rewriting these things. Is it factual?
Yeah.
It is to training.
Right.
You know.
Plus, that could be read either way.
And does
I know
information,
because it's not.
and
Yeah.
and you're
Net
equating
economic.
information to facts.
I am. Yeah. That's right. What is information? Where are we have
Yeah.
our
I mean,
That was
Uh,
advocacy.
was that advocacy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and you
Um,
know, is all information factual?
yeah.
We already know that's not true.
Not if you
So-
listen to the
Yeah.
political ads.
That's right.
Is extreme measure that would legalize not only marijuana, extreme marijuana will also potent dangerous chemical concentrates that appeal to children.
So I think there's some wording in here that would make it still not information.
Is a harmful measure. I mean, that's a very opinionated, less factual.
I
severe
mean,
problem.
they could say to me
Ignores-
something that's written informational would be ballot measure 2 is a measure
Yes.
that would legalize not only marijuana. I mean, I think that's true, or at least informational. They're not advocating. I don't know.
And appeal to children.
Yeah.
Children like 18 and under. Who put this in together? I don't want to know.
Yeah, that's like marijuana brownies.
Oh, we do
What
know.
they're
Yeah,
speaking
I
of.
forgot, never mind.
Okay, so ballot measure 2 is a harmful measure that ignores severe problems.
Lisa, if ballot measure 2 passes, can we get marijuana brownies?
Yeah, really.
I'm a municipal employee, I cannot
We'll probably
disseminate.
get a lot more accomplished.
I'm gonna be very careful about what I
How we might
disseminate.
benefit, we should probably consider that too.
That's right.
It's true.
Result in extensive advertising. A lot of the stuff is, I would say, pretty informational, with a few words here and there.
Yeah.
But
Although, could we,
Could your opinion
Could
say,
we-
suggest not using such colorful language?
do we have to write an opinion?
You have to
right?
write
Yeah, we'll write an
Yeah.
opinion, so we can certainly, like,
So we
make a
can
lot
say-
of recommendations
yeah.
saying, like, you know, while we find it's not clearly prohibited, there
Yeah.
is a lot that, you
Lot
know,
of-
in the spirit of good
Yeah.
governance, you should probably
Fully
think about
written,
tapping down this
yeah.
language and toning
Right.
this
Yeah.
down, but you can still have make the essence of what you want, which is expressing your
Yeah.
opinion about
Right.
ballot measures.
With the exception of telling the voters how to vote.
exactly.
Yeah.
That sounds like consensus right there.
Yeah, that might work. Maybe. Who's writing the opinion?
Oh, I've got.
No.
majority.
He's already got it. I'll go make copies.
Just email Dick.
Yeah, you're good to go. You're clear and hot.
Potholes on my street.
Yeah.
Just one thing, we want to make sure we don't open the door to, you know, that we have to approve every
No, in fact,
resolution that you come up with.
and we
No.
have,
Somebody
and we have been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
Well,
We're-
but this is a ballot measure issue. This isn't anything else they do. I think this is fairly, I would expect this to be fairly
You
limited.
know,
When you get any opinion, we could try to lay out as much as some criteria about, what we think makes something cross that line.
And urges voters to vote to defeat ballot measure 2, in my opinion, is what
Seems like
crosses the
zero.
line. Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know, and I would suggest that Terry does write a portion of this because all the things you listed as concerns, with
Mhm.
this code section, I mean, it needs a rewrite, period.
Mhm.
Let's get it rewritten.
Yeah.
And whether we can figure what, you know, they have to make a couple policy decisions. It might be, geez, could we meet with that election and ethics group and say, what do you
Yeah.
think? I mean, 'cause-
Apparently, we have a meeting in 2 weeks that I didn't know about, so
Uh,
it's on the
it's-
agenda.
We'll get back to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would suggest
I think
that it really
he's right.
needs to say what are some of the, you know, why did we get so hung up on this? Well, because there's 18 problems with it.
So can you read the motion before we vote on it, please?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh, no, I think I have it. The code does not clearly prohibit the Assembly from introducing and passing the original proposed resolution, except the last clause, which states, urges voters to defeat ballot measure 2.
Actually, it starts with the and.
That actually gets pretty close.
Yeah.
I think that actually is pretty
Yeah.
close.
So call the question.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There's the question, and I'll pull the vote.
Yeah, I think that's actually,
Yeah.
Okay,
Aye.
Steve Strong,
Aye.
Ted Carlson,
Aye.
Terrence Cully,
aye.
David Nesbitt, Keith Silver.
Yeah, aye.
Okay, I think that gets us pretty close to where we were originally going.
Yeah. Are we done?
Terry, could,
Wow.
we can
I need a
work
drink.
together to.
I need a brownie.
to work that out. I don't think that it has to be more than one. Do you think it has to be real long?
Oh, I think I can
Voter?
see more than one page on this because we're
Yeah.
sort of trying to give them a map to a rewrite.
Could we, on the record, could you all ask Terry on the record what it is that you want him to put into that opinion?
Well, no Kafka-esque.
Oh, but I know she don't complain when Glenda has all sorts of like.
She didn't do it like you
being
do.
tautological. The tautological approach. I was like, oh, Chairman Key's gonna be, and you were like, oh no. I knew what it meant, you know. But when Dr. Kelly says something, oh, it's all over.
For
Dr.
instance,
Kelly,
you
know.
wanted to
want
expound on
prettier.
the,
Well, that's what I was
that the code is
thinking. I was
unclear
thinking,
and
you know,
maybe
if I-
where.
Yeah. Well, Terry had listed a whole list of 8 things in his support of his motion. Now, where if we could find that on the record
Terry?
before him? And,
Dick.
no, Terry.
Terry.
Yeah, you verbalized several things.
Why it was unclear, and he probably can remember those
The
anyway.
connection
but
from
you-
035 back to
Oh, okay,
025.
right.
What's the status of?
Yeah.
What is the status of, at least for E, employees like Lisa engaging in their normal activities, or
Publishing,
bodies
distributing.
engaging in.
Well, I
Don't
think
say
we
like
also-
Lisa.
materials.
We also need to include the lack of definitions.
Yes.
Okay, that's
For-
another
I
one.
agree.
Yeah,
Uh,
almost each
partisan-
word.
And
Yeah,
definition would be
problems.
partisan and the other, what's the other one
Partisan,
you mentioned?
Was it advocacy or what was the other?
Or what it means to distribute, so, and
Distribute.
those words should probably get maybe cleaned up.
Of
Maybe
any
that-
material.
Maybe that sweeping language is a little too sweeping.
You're trying to
Well-
change the definition, not just clarify.
Well, no, I'm saying, well, part of it-
We all have to be very careful when we review his draft.
Yeah.
Because
Well, but you know, it may be that we, maybe even before that next meeting in 2 weeks, if there is one, can almost do a checklist of questions to ask this
Sure.
committee. I mean, do you agree that, you know, assembly person should be able to pass a resolution voting there? I mean, really, this is a municipal code. They could say, hey, we think we can say anything we want. I don't think it doesn't violate any conflict of interest provisions or, it's their code. So what do they think that they should be able to say?
Right, that's
I mean,
right.
if they're not expending funds,
Yeah, that's right.
what limitations, what's the intent here? Why are they
Yeah, what do they
limiting
want?
themselves?
Yeah, what do they want to do?
So maybe, I can think about this, I can have an opinion that, can be fairly straightforward, and then I'll call out some of these other issues or a letter that would go to that committee then for a code rewrite.
Yeah.
Saying like, here's some issues that we have, and then we can start thinking about, we can use that draft letter as kind of like, here's some suggestions for how to rewrite the code so it's more clear for everyone what people are allowed to do.
Because I think too, that we can use portions, blocks
How many
from Glenda's
meetings do they have in October? Just two?
original letter. I mean, that,
One was assembly meeting?
the concept is we can use a lot of that stuff and then supplement it with what Terry wants.
He's gonna want this done at least.
That way we've already got.
He's gonna want it done right away.
It's all
That's right, that way we can't blame him for tautological.
Okay, so
Okay.
no, I just want to make sure that you're going to do the unclarity, the code is unclear,
Mhm.
the definitions, the exception for this resolution, suggestions for making it better.
Give less heartburn.
Less,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
And then you're going to do a separate letter that does suggestions for rewrite.
For rewriting
Okay.
elements of 025 and 035 to sort of like make that.
And when is his due date?
Could you ask them to
And-
explain what earwax is too, please?
I don't know.
And-
And it would be helpful for me if the board could sort of pre-authorize my advisory opinion, so we could just publish it right away.
I was going to ask that
Further
because
review.
Mr. Trainee has asked for an expedited opinion.
Okay.
Well, but really I was.
Are you
He
serious?
has asked for an expedited opinion. I think he's probably going to call this afternoon and want to know what happened. So
Okay.
he's going to want it quickly.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can do it where Terry writes it and as soon as he gets it written, it can be like, how would we do that? Bounce to.
Or can we authorize that, the board authorizes that, the main call, that the
To
board
drop in
found
or
that the
just-
board, that the code is not clear enough to prohibit the resolution as written except for, so you give him the result, not the
Yeah.
reasoning.
Right.
Because he'll introduce it at the next meeting, essentially,
Okay.
probably.
So this won't be a thing where we're going to wait for next month. This is a thing that if you can get it done as quickly as possible, that's what's going to
Right.
probably work.
But then you try to do the one-liner.
Yeah, and I'll do the one right.
Yeah, because if he fixes
Oh,
the
yeah,
last line, we all said fine.
Just
Yeah, I mean,
remember.
is everyone comfortable with Lisa communicating to think that last motion that passed the code does not clearly prohibit them from introducing and passing this motion minus that last clause?
Okay.
And then at least he'll know more or less the outcome, and then the
Right.
advisory opinion, which,
Yeah.
I'll write, I'll try to
mean,
write it, I can write it tomorrow. We'll then lay out, are they going to do it tonight, you think?
No,
no.
what he'll
No,
do
that was
is,
Oh, yeah, it's Wednesday, right?
We don't-
And then the advisory opinion will include some of the more detailed things about like, yeah, we're saying it's not, but there still are some heartburn type phrases in here that it would be best to tone down.
I think your communication with them needs to say what passed, but we also need to let them know that there is the
Just
opinion
follow it.
will include the fact that it was poorly written,
Mhm.
and things need to be, there's some other issues that need to be addressed. So,
Just make sure that's information.
yeah.
So their next meeting is on September 26th. So I imagine that it would be
2 weeks from
introduced then.
Yeah.
introduce that, and it
And
can be
we'd
passed
have
the
the-
same night.
But we'd have the opinion done.
Yeah,
before.
well.
Yeah, right.
Is it gonna pass?
Oh, I don't know the vote.
He
Do
d-
you
he's-
know ahead of time?
No, he said that there are some who would oppose it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's just, it's like reversed from what you would see nationally.
Mhm.
if you divide it into political parties.
I'm telling you, it's a bending kind of issue, right?
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of
Yeah.
people politically.
He actually
all,
may,
you know,
may get more votes by taking that last clause out.
It might, yeah. I mean, that's the one that stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like David, don't tell me how to vote.
Yeah.
I'm willing to take information from
Right.
anybody, whether I agree with them or not. And I like to form my own opinion. And I think most people.
Okay,
So
so
can we go back and
start over.
start over and try to get through at least the front of this?
Okay, so we got 20 minutes,
Wow.
It'll put us back at 7A, I believe.
3.5 hours. 7A disclosure forms.
Oh.
Yeehaw.
Yeah.
It should be easy and painless.
That's because there's none there.
Am I in here?
There's none there.
Okay, we don't have anything until present
David
economic.
Nesbitt, I don't know about him.
Oh.
I went through these and I don't have a problem.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion?
Move to accept.
To move to accept the disclosures? Do we have a second?
Sorry.
Well, can you second your own disclosure?
Second.
Oh, you're right. I should recuse myself from all of these but mine. Or I mean, mine,
I
but.
guess the problem I have with David's is it looks like it was filed before he was even appointed.
Is that
I don't think you can do that. I think that needs to be refiled with the clerk's office.
I already did this twice. Oh, that's 8/2000.
Basically, yeah.
That's the year, that's not the date.
Oh, that's right, he's right.
Oh,
He's right.
Oh, yeah, could you have Mr. Nesbitt
No.
fill this out? So
He's already filled it out twice.
Just to put a little postage on, more attention to detail too.
Okay,
Okay, then we have a
more clarity.
conflict.
Well, it's been moved, what?
For some people, apparently things that are clear really aren't clear.
They all got accepted, so we're on to the conflict.
Which one was?
So past the yellow, there's a conflict of interest. I think everyone's on it. Steve's on it.
What's
The
that?
conflict of
Oh,
interest.
yeah.
I'll just take a motion when you're ready.
Sorry, what are we doing?
Oh, so that would be
The conflict.
7A4, right? I'm not sure I know where I'm supposed to
Eric
look.
Crock.
Oh, past the disclosures. We're still in 7A. So there's a conflict right there.
What is the name of it? Oh, it's some
Architects, okay. I couldn't read the word architects.
Oh, but it's, oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right,
No
now-
problem with that.
Okay, just give me a motion.
Second.
Okay. And then next we have a notice of intent to respond to a public solicitation.
Yeah, on the heels.
Oh, well, can I reverse my vote? I want to read both of them at the same time. I'm just kidding.
It might be best if his wife is doing this, that Eric Croft doesn't go write the check.
But he's the one that has to disclose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That's
but
for
this is a
disclosure.
$15 for the notice of intent to respond to public solicitation. And he wrote the check, not her.
Oh, he probably wrote the check because he showed up to drop off the form because he's
Yeah,
responsible.
Because he's the
for filing
responsible.
form.
Yeah, I moved it from.
Here's
Yeah.
Dick.
So we,
Second.
but we, I would just,
You guys for that?
I'm not, I don't have an issue with it, it's just that
Okay,
it really, we
second.
had a problem with other people doing
Okay.
that, it really should have been her doing it.
Yeah, maybe just remind him in the future to have the check written out in advance and signed by his wife.
Yeah. So is there anything else?
Okay,
Did
so
you, did we
you
finish
wanna-
that? Did you ask for opposition? I just want to make sure that went through.
I just did.
We seconded
Yes,
it.
Yes, we
Yes,
seconded
okay.
it again.
All right.
Okay.
Can we maybe switch the order?
Yeah, can we?
We
Go back
can
to
jump back, actually,
Yeah.
this is relatively simple. We want to read the,
We reached a conclusion.
yes,
You did good.
yes. If-
Better than we do.
We dissolved the assembly. Real hard left-hand turn.
Well, we got,
There are people who would like that.
Should the king speak or?
So we got all the way to the end.
no, go ahead.
Okay.
Keith.
Go ahead, Keith.
I got no problem with
Okay, we
that.
got all the way to the end, and just when you don't tell us how to vote, then we're fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Basically, we just said that the code is not clear enough to prohibit this absent that last sentence. Or the last phrase.
And
not the
actually, I
last
think
sentence.
anybody who has a problem with anybody who has a problem with it in the assembly who might, you know, I probably can't advocate one way or the other.
Thank you, guys. You'll see introduced probably on the 23rd meeting.
But what we'll do though is we still are going to issue something in writing.
That's fine. I
That
appreciate
clarifies,
it.
because we want to at least
23rd.
kind of document some of the issues that we discussed.
And I agree, we need to rewrite the code.
Yeah, that's
Some
gonna
of
be
these
as part
other
of the
ideas, we
advisory
want to make sure that's out
I
there.
appreciate all your work.
But we
on
want to
this.
make sure you had our.
And sorry to dump it on you guys,
No.
but I wanted an opinion before I threw it out there, and then somebody filed a complaint, and you guys said, "No, you can't do that." I gotta
Actually-
know ahead of time.
You know, I'm not speaking for the board here, but I really appreciate the fact that we're doing some of these things and helping the assembly. I think it's really enjoyable, because before we used to spend a lot of time going with disclosure forms. I feel like our work here is much more sensitive and much more meaningful now. And
We're here.
I appreciate you bringing these things to us.
I appreciate you guys doing it. Thank you very much.
May I interject here since Dick is here, because I was asked by the chair of the Elections and Ethics and Elections Committee, I was asked to put this on our agenda, that Ernie would like actually for this board to participate in their committee meetings. They meet once a month on the fourth Wednesday of each month. The next meeting is 9/24 and 10/22. He's invited the entire board, if not a member, if not the chair, to come to their meetings, give a report of what the board is working, our board is working on, and maybe bring back a report of what their board is working on, their committee is working on. And also, it gives you the ability, you know, once a month to, if you have an issue at your meeting, if you want to bring it to the Ethics and Election Committee for their consideration too, it would be a nice exchange each month.
That's a good idea.
In fact, there have been some we've tried to bounce back to them.
Yeah.
Why are we looking at this?
No, it's a good idea to have
Thank you
that
guys
kind
for
of
dealing with this. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'll send out reminders when those meetings come up, and you guys can decide amongst
Yeah.
yourselves, or if you all want to go.
Okay.
Now-
Could you also give Dick your suggestions about maybe
Oh, yes.
not being, you know,
Yeah, if
The language.
Bill 2 passes, we want hot brownies.
oh no,
Yeah.
I did not mean that. I did not mean that. No.
Not that part.
No.
And
I mean-
it would be no surprise you've heard in the taxation issue. I have it already written. So in effect, if it does pass, we're gonna tax it heavily. Right now, we make $23 million a year on tobacco tax.
You're gonna make a
The
lot.
city alone.
Yes.
Yeah, and
And there's
it's
gonna be
also
a
the
lot
second highest
more.
tax in the city, in the state.
We make $23 million a year on it.
Yeah, the state makes.
And the argument was, well, you'll stop, get people to quit smoking. Fine, I win
Yeah.
either way.
Yeah.
That's right.
But in fact, the mayor opposed both taxes I raised. That's $2.10 I've raised tobacco since I've been on the summit. We need to diversify our income stream, and tobacco works for us.
Yeah.
So I've got marijuana ready to go, and the event that it passes,
No,
we'll see a
that's
big
smart.
taxation.
No, that's huge. That may be more than tobacco.
Wait till I bring
Yeah,
alcohol.
that'll bring my property taxes down.
Huh?
Just bring my
So
property
Lisa,
taxes
if
down.
it is heavily taxed, is that still within the board's budget to have?
If you don't have any sandwiches,
Well, I would
maybe.
bring the
Chips.
$25 a month back to you guys. Yeah, 'cause I think it was you that said, we're not even paid anymore.
Yeah, we used to be $50 a month, actually.
Oh, well.
But as soon as I
25
started, they shut it down.
That's a big chunk. Hey, I'm happy we're fed again. I mean, for a while.
I know,
But,
we
you
almost
know,
lost
I used to
our
go to the clerk's office to steal a bottle of water.
I just thought it might
I'm
be
sorry.
helpful, since you probably if you're going to introduce them on the 23rd, you're probably going to go right in to get those changes made to the urge part. That maybe the suggestions about maybe not making the language so dramatic.
Oh,
What I'm
yeah.
gonna do is drop
So-
the urge part off of what I introduced. The
Urge.
urge part there will not be on there.
Oh,
But
and
the drama stuff.
extreme,
Extreme,
Yeah.
extreme measure and a bad measure or something.
like,
We did-
and harmful
we
to
didn't
children,
specifically-
and
Well, I
We
don't
didn't
think-
specifically
I don't think
exclude
we
those, but that was given
Yeah.
for the advisory.
Yeah.
opinion.
This one will be dropped off on monitor.
Yeah, that was
It will
part,
end in Alaska.
yeah, that was the motion that passed. It was only if that was dropped.
I'll drop that.
And it's in the title too, Dick.
It's a throwaway, I can do that.
I gotta leave shortly, so.
Okay.
We know.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anything else, guys?
No, sir.
Thanks for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate you doing this. Upstairs to see the city manager.
thank you, Dick. Okay, so if we go back to 7C, this is just a letter from Ed Graff, the superintendent. He sent it in for the board to review. Not pre-sending it out. It's already been sent out to staff, but that he wanted the board to see it.
What is it? What's D?
7C.
C. It's all, something right on it.
So
Is this
I
in our
think
e-
it's very
is this in our
interesting.
email?
No, he sent it into the office to distribute to you all. So you're welcome to take it if you want to the board. But I just think it's really interesting, the committee wanting, your input, and also Ed Graff being very cognizant of your.
As long as, like they say, that all candidates are invited, so that makes sense to me. That's how, when we go to Rotary, for an example, they all can, we try not to take sides on any kind of issues, and any and all are invited. There's lots of others here. Oh, all the memos go back to,
Those are all the policies that
go
he
back
mentioned. in the-
to,
What, spawned this? Do you know? What-
just-
Was there an issue that came up, or did they just decided?
I just assumed it was the beginning of the school
is it,
year.
just- is it more it's being proactive as opposed to reactive?
We put out something too, the MOA. The employee relations puts out something usually.
With the election coming up in the beginning of the
Yeah.
school
I think we
year.
do something with the university too, don't we, Terry? As far as political, or something that comes out.
But I don't know, but you allow people to use the Wendy Williamson, and
They probably pay for it, though. I'm assuming. We charge for everything.
now it'll be the Alaska Airlines Center.
Okay, so that's just FYI, unless you guys have any objection. I think we have to continue B because Glenda is not with us, and go on to C. And that would be D. Are you?
Yeah, and I wondered if we could go into deliberative session about this, because it involved, even though this cleansed version is whether we're going to publish this on the website. My comments about it would be more direct and probably appropriate for deliberative.
Second.
Okay, move second, go to deliberative session. Hearing no objection.